Hey, church, I want to share a little bit of a different devotional today. This week was St. Patrick's Day. For everybody who's Irish, congratulations. By the way, I have a unique thing about being Irish. I used to be Irish. A lot of people say that they're Irish, but how many can say they used to be Irish? How did I used to be Irish? My wife and I did Ancestry.com, the genetic analysis, about 10 years ago, and it showed that I was 3% Irish. But about a year or two ago, I got a letter saying they made the calculations more accurate, and my Irish was eliminated. So I guess I got kicked out of being Irish. But in any case, I want to talk today about some lessons from the life of St. Patrick, because he was one of the greatest missionaries of all time. And I'll just share 6 quick lessons from him. Number 1, he shows the power of being raised in a godly home. He was actually the son of a deacon in probably 5th or 6th century Ireland, and he was not serving God at all. He was very backslidden. But when he was, and of course you know probably, he was English, not Irish, he was taken enslaved by the Irish, and people enslaved each other all the time in the British Isles and pretty much everywhere at the time. But when he was enslaved, God used it to cause him to seek God. And he really got his life together and started seeking God. And so the things he'd learned in his youth came back to him. So don't be discouraged, parents, and I include myself. If your child is backslidden, they may be like another St. Patrick in the making, a great person of God who just needs to go through some clarifying experiences. Number 2, his life shows the power of forgiveness. The power of forgiveness. Patrick was a slave for 6 years in Ireland, and he was not well treated at all. But after that, ultimately, he felt God telling him to go back to Ireland. When he was freed, he escaped and went back to England. And what if he hadn't forgiven the Irish? What if he hated them for enslaving them, mistreating him? Not everybody mistreated him. Some people were nice, but he was a slave at the bottom of the pole. If he had never forgiven, God would never have used him as a great missionary to take the gospel to Ireland. And the Irish at that time were worshiping rocks and trees and were in pretty bad spiritual shape. Who knows? Maybe they still would be. So Patrick's life shows the power of forgiveness, because there came a point where he had to forgive the Irish for the things they had done to him. The third thing that his life shows us is that he learned to hear the voice of God. While he was a slave, if you read his biography, and this is on the internet, he at one day actually heard a voice saying, "Your ship is ready. Get ready to go back home." He heard a voice. It was the voice of God. And as a result of that, he actually made preparations and escaped, and yes, indeed, found a ship that he was able to get back on and ultimately get home. He had some adventures before he got home. But knowing and hearing the voice of God is so important, and that helped Patrick at a very key point in his life. Number 5, he knew how to pray in things. He learned to depend on God for provision. History, his biography says that when the people he escaped with got off in England, they were all together and they were starving. They didn't have food, they didn't have money. They had just escaped to get back to where they came from. And Patrick took a chance. There were not many Christians then, and said, "I'm a Christian. I'm going to pray to God that he will supply food for us." And he led them all in prayer. Probably a lot of them are laughing or sneering at him. But almost immediately after that, they came across a whole group of wild pigs, and caught one and ate well. Pork chops, barbecue. And as a result of that, Patrick was fed, but Patrick's credibility in the group went sky high. After that, they said, "Wow, we need to listen to Patrick because he has a pipeline to God." The next thing I want to share is how he got his call. Acts 16:9. A vision appeared to Paul in the night. A man of Macedonia was standing and appealing to him and saying, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." Patrick had a similar thing. He saw a man perishing in a dream, beckoning him to come to get the gospel to him, and Patrick was convinced it was one of the Irish people he knew when he was a slave. He knew God's word, he connected it, and he responded and went to Ireland. Another thing about Patrick, he believed in power encounters. One of the turning points in his life, according to his biography and other biographies, was when he actually stood against the Druid priests, who were very powerful, who were very occult practitioners in league with the devil. But he lit a light on the hill that they owned on a special day, and that was something that you'd be killed for, and they were enraged. But the king was so intrigued that someone would dare stand up to the Druids that he actually protected Patrick and said, "Why are you doing this?" And one thing led to another, and he ultimately led the king to Christ. And then from there, the gospel went through all Ireland. But it was because he had the boldness to stand up for God in a key spot. The last thing I want to note about Patrick, and there's a lot of things we could say, is he was a person who made disciples. Patrick was very much into training people. During his life, it's estimated he trained, I've heard numbers of up to 10,000 priests. They were the leaders at the time. They were called priests, who went all throughout the British Isles, and then some of them went into continental Europe and other places as well. And basically, they were the ones who evangelized that part of the world at that time. So he had a huge impact because he poured himself into others. So anyway, this is St. Patrick Week. These are great lessons from his biography, and there's a lot more. I'm sure you may even know some, but things we can learn from one of the greatest missionaries of all history, Patrick, who was English but went to Ireland. Just to give you an update on a couple things coming up this week. This Sunday we have a special speaker, Andy Lynn, who works with high school students. This would be a great week to invite someone out to church. Invite someone back to church, maybe who's drifted away, or someone who needs Jesus this Sunday. That's one thing. Our Passover Seder will be a great spiritual experience. We're so excited about that because everything in the Passover points to Jesus Christ. So if you're interested in that, that will be the Saturday night before Easter. We'll do it over a dinner. In our homes, it'll be virtual. You eat dinner. You just have to provide a few items of food and things like that, parsley and egg and things like that. That will make it authentic. But this is a great thing, be a great thing to invite a Jewish friend to. The last thing I want to mention, also our Sight and Sound drama of Jesus will be Good Friday evening. If you're interested in that, the Jesus production is a great production. I've seen it, and you'll be blessed by it. The last thing is our Jordan experience. We had a good crew show up last Sunday, and people are registering for that. If you want to do that, we need you to register immediately for it, because we're putting together the experience box with food and drinks and things from Jordan, things about Jordan. So if you're interested in that, it'll be a great missions experience. You don't have to get a shot, fly somewhere, sleep in a bed that doesn't work right, but it'll be virtually 5 hours. April, I think, is the weekend of 11th. So anyway, church, God bless you, and congratulations to those who are Irish and a lot of us who are European of other extracts, because we owe our spiritual ancestry to one person, Patrick, who had the boldness to go back to those who had mistreated him. Thank God for Patrick and his missionary work. God bless you.